Welcome. My name is John Handel, and this is the next section of the Enterprise Project Leadership Architecture. So we finished talking about the International Credit Card Project, and now we'll look at how executive leadership can shorten the time between project completion and enterprise value realization. So it has to be operational participation plus formal instruction during the latter part of the project. So it can't just be running some tests. They should be formally trained on how they're going to maintain this new system. Whatever the processes or procedure are for your project, they should receive that formal training and make sure it aligns with your corporate structure for how they expect to deal with this new capability. So you can see from this timeline that in the credit card problem, the project was approximately 6 months long, but the final 6 weeks is where they participated. And depending on how technically complicated the project is, you could extend this out further to the beginning of the project if necessary, so they get a maximum amount of experience. Like I said, on a wireless project I worked on, the engineer, our customer's engineer from Japan, spent a year at Naperville, Illinois, as a expat, learning our switching system and our wireless application. So he had a year's worth of experience before he ever went back and tried to maintain that operationally in service. So this was all ahead of schedule or all ahead of time. So the AT&T technicians, they participated alongside the Bell Labs team in the morning for all day for the first 2 weeks of this. They were there all day. And then the last 4 weeks, they spent in the morning, they spent with us, and in the afternoon, they received formal instruction from the AT&T instructor. And that led to operational readiness at project completion. So in the morning, they built experience through participation. They could see exactly what would happen when they did certain things on the system and what the results should be. And in the afternoons, they converted that into repeatable operational capability. So operations ready at completion, immediate ownership. Our project team departed earlier, and that led to earlier enterprise value. And so we did this 35 years ago, and we enhanced enterprise value, but we just didn't call it more. But we were doing that a long time ago. So Bell Labs reduced our project costs through earlier demobilization. We left the site, Sacramento, and so we had a lot of travel and living expenses for hotels and apartment buildings and airplane travel and meals. So that was cut short by 6 weeks, which is a considerable saving just for the travel expense, let alone that didn't even count our salaries then for the 6 weeks. So AT&T training was completed ahead of time, and AT&T International achieved operational independence sooner. So preparing operations during the project reduces post-project dependency and accelerates value realization. And today, that more principle that PMI is promoting, that's the part of integrated operational readiness that can lead to that enterprise value. Other than that, there's nothing that the project manager can do to increase the probability of return on investment. Their operational readiness capability is the most that they can get out of the more concept of enhancing enterprise value. It's up to those other two management teams, operational management and executive management, to be successful to achieve the full benefits of enterprise value and return on investment. So how does executive governance reduce the delay between project completion and enterprise value? So executive leadership authorizes deployment based on objective evidence. So that gets into the next segment. And we've got executive governance gate. And we'll see what happens behind the shield here. And this is a key component of the architecture. And when is an organization truly ready to accept operational responsibility? It says executive leadership determines organizational acceptance by reviewing project completion evidence. And that's the key, is the evidence, not just somebody saying it's okay, but what evidence do you have that it was completed? What test results are you documented that you can show that you achieved what the business case said you were supposed to have? Operational readiness. They have to prove that they've been trained, what procedures they have in place, how many people have been trained, what the gaps are in the training, production validation, support capability, customer readiness, and value realization continuity at the executive governance gate review. So the review confirms that acceptance is an executive's decision rather than a project milestone. And that's a key concept, a difference. They used to focus solely on the project, and the project was accepted or not accepted. And if it was accepted, it was good to go. And that's where a lot of people assume that, oh, because it was such a good project, we're bound to make money. But that just doesn't prove to be the case. So with this gate, you've got operations management present, project management present, and executive leadership. So technical completion does not guarantee organizational readiness. Executive leadership authorizes organizational acceptance. So they have to determine, even though the project is successful, are the other sections of the business ready to go? So again, projects create that capability, operations sustain it, and executive leadership transforms it into sustained customer value. So exactly what's covered at this gate? Well, we're going to look at the technical capability, operational readiness, organizational readiness, business readiness, and executive readiness. And only after you get a go on all 5 areas do you authorize deployment. So deployment is an executive governance decision, not merely a project milestone. So the purpose of this gate review, it's a formal executive decision point conducted before a project is authorized to transition into operational service. Determining whether sufficient objective evidence exists to demonstrate operational readiness, organizational readiness, and executive confidence that the delivered capability can be sustained in live operations. The question set. So there's each of those 5 areas have a series of questions, and the questions are usually short questions, but they're very detailed questions. So the question set has to be tailored to your company and to your specific project. So these questions are not cast in concrete. They're subjective to the type of business that you're in and what's relevant to your business environment. So they may be slightly different for your situation, but they're defined, they're reviewed, and they're approved before executive governance gate review. So there's no surprises as to when you get to the gate review exactly what's what's going to be asked of you. Okay, so you know what the questions are going to be, and you know what's required to satisfy those questions. So questions shall not be omitted, bypassed, or declared satisfied without review of the required evidence. So you just can't say, well, this one's okay. I don't have any evidence, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty good. That won't do. It has to be provided by evidence. Every gate question shall be explicitly answered, supported by objective evidence, and formally dispositioned before final authorization may be granted. And this is the key point: silence, assumption, prior discussion, or general vote of approval shall not constitute evidence of readiness. And I saw this when I first transitioned into another organization. I was only there about a week, and the following week they were having a gate review for a project that I had no involvement with, but I was going to attend the meeting, and one of the agenda items was this gate review. So I went and got the list of questions for that particular gate, and I was going to go to the meeting and see how that gate review went. And when it got time to ask the questions, it just says, this is gate 4 for this small project. And everybody said, that's approved, next item. And so they never asked the questions. No one attempted to answer any of the questions. And lo and behold, about 4 or 5 weeks later, when they were going to deliver to the customer, one of the questions was, is customer documentation available? And it would have been a simple question to ask, and the answer would be no, because the organization requiring or going to generate the documentation never did anything. And the reason they didn't do anything was the budget was approved, but the money was never transferred to that organization to actually do the work. So everybody on paper thought, well, the money's approved and this organization will do it, but then somebody forgot to give them the money, so they didn't do anything. And the customer asked where their documentation was, and they had to scramble around for several days, working around the clock, and produce this documentation all on an ad hoc, extremely expensive operation, working people around the clock for about a week and a half to generate this stuff. Had they answered and done the gate review properly, they would have realized this problem 4 or 5 weeks before delivery, and they could have rectified the situation, transferred the money, and had the people start working on the documentation. So silence, assumption, prior discussion won't cut it. You have to have a vote of approval, and silence shall not constitute a general vote of approval shall not constitute evidence of readiness. So the finding must be recorded, and the accountable owner must sign off. Only after completing the review can executives approve organizational readiness. So, has the organization produced sufficient objective evidence to responsibly authorize operational deployment? So, executive leadership authorizes deployment only after reviewing this information from the meeting, that the delivered capability performs as intended, operational personnel are prepared and trained, and organizational support processes are in place, business risks are understood, customer impacts have been evaluated, and leadership is satisfied that operational success can be sustained. Okay, so that's the way you guarantee that if the highest degree of confidence that you're going to be able to achieve your enterprise value is if you formally accept the transfer of this capability into operations. So executive governance ensures that the organizational deployment decisions are based upon objective evidence, not project completion alone. Project teams are responsible for demonstrating that the capability has been delivered Executive leadership is responsible for determining whether the organization is prepared to sustain that capability in live operations. And the executive governance gate protects the customers, it protects operations, employees, and the enterprise by requiring disciplined evidence before authorizing deployment. So you don't go off and put something in service that's not quite ready. So if governance exists, decisions are evidence-based. Operational readiness is independent of project completion. And that's a key concept here. Okay, project completion has nothing to do with operational readiness, but integrated operational readiness helps answer that question and improve operational readiness. Okay. Executive governance protects the enterprise, and deployment is a business decision, not merely a technical decision based on the project. And governance continues after deployment through operational monitoring. And if it's absent, project completion can be mistaken for organizational readiness. Unresolved operational and customer risks can pass into live operations. And I've seen that happen many times, where people say it's ready to go, and lo and behold, they based it on some assumptions that weren't true. We had a system in a 5E system that could produce 400 customer assignments. So assigning a new telephone number to a customer, we could do 400 an hour. And the lab said, the database lab said they could do in excess of 400 an hour, and we guaranteed 400, so it was no problem. And they went into service in a big office in downtown Chicago. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon during their busy hour, they could only install one subscriber line per hour, not 400, just one. And the database people said, well, there's something wrong with their system. There's obviously some other problem there. And come to be that there was no other problem, that they could only do one. And the root cause of that was the database testing was done in an idle environment. And when they went over to a call processing lab that could generate the traffic, they found that the traffic generated used up so much real time that the recent change messages had no chance of getting through the network to be processed. So it was a rather involved fix to change the priority to messages so that the recent change messages had a higher priority during busy hour, and they could process reasonable number of subscriber lines. Decisions can be driven by schedule pressure or consensus rather than evidence. So some people have a cast in concrete date for cutover, and they're going to cut over on that date because they've had a sign out in front of the building for 2 years that new service was coming on that date. And so I was involved in a project early on where that was the case, and for 2 years they had a sign that says before they even had the building modified and equipment in the building, had a sign up on May 5th of 2 years from now, you'll have this new digital technology. And by golly, on that day they cut over, and we had to scale back what we promised to deliver because it wasn't all working yet. So we had a phased delivery, but we cut over on that date and maintained the office, and we were there past cutover until we delivered the additional features that weren't available on May 5th. And it was a couple of months later that we delivered them, and then we brought it up to par with what they promised on May 5th. But Sometimes it's schedule pressure that does this. The project may be complete, but the organization may not be ready, and that happens a lot. So, project acceptance confirms project scope was delivered. It's led by the project manager, focuses on technical completion, and it signals the end of project work. And the executive operational authorization confirms operational readiness, led by executive leadership, focuses on sustainable operations, and begins operational accountability. So the workflow here is project completion. The project manager will put together the package, the evidence package that shows that objective readiness evidence is ready to go for review at the gate review. A pre-gate readiness review. Evidence is validated for review by everybody, the operations manager, project manager, quality control. They go to the gate, and then depending on the gate decision, they either go with conditions or go live, or go with conditions, defer, or no go. And then they deploy, and then you start enterprise value monitoring, and that's where you start seeing your enterprise value. And then over time, as your enterprise value, you do periodic reviews, and eventually you're going to find that you need to go and continue this loop again and come up with a new, you'll have a new project need due to obsolescence, competition, or what have you, and you'll start over and get a business case. So the decisions, these are pretty straightforward. Okay, you can have, these are pretty, you could use this on any type of a project. Go or no go, defer, go with conditions. Deployment confidence assessment, pretty straightforward, unacceptable with very high. Okay, these are pretty generic. But here, when you get over to operational risk classification matrix, it's pretty generic to have low to critical risk levels, but the actual description and the executive action, these criteria here is going to be dependent on your individual project and your particular corporation. So these risks may be different than what's listed here and what the action is. So you have to tailor this to your own corporation and your own project. So the governance roles, the executive sponsor will participate. They're going to chair the governance gate. Project manager will be present. The operation manager is present. The functional managers will verify readiness within their organization. Quality rep will be there if that's appropriate. Reviews compliance. And the executive leadership team makes the deployment decision. So the next segment, we'll talk about the actual questions. That concludes this section of the presentation. So I look forward to the next video, and thank you for listening, and we'll see you shortly at the next video.